Hello students, welcome to Recitals in Depth. Herein, we will cover the summits and organizations, May 2024 current affair topics in detail. The broader themes which are going to be covered are as follows: climate and environment, global trade, international security, upcoming technologies, and regional organizations. This is the index for this month's recital, and the first topic is UNCTAD on global trade. So this is concerning the theme of global trade, and also we will look at the fallout on environment. Then in Europe's AI convention is an emerging technology, and how the world looks at it to regulate it is going to be a perspective here. BIMSTEC charter comes into force is about regional groupings and how they can have an impact. Also their impact with respect to India is going to be covered. Thematic reports on rangelands and pastoralists by UNCCD. This is related to the theme climate change and environment. United Nations Department of Safety and Security is related to international security. UNCTAD on rising temperatures and trade disruptions. So this report of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development is suggesting that we are seeing a increase in temperature, and a very interesting cause has been given that it is due to disruption in global trade. Now it seems to be a very non-interlinked thing and very two distinct things, that how can stopping of trade lead to increase in climate. So we need to understand a new concept called as sea lanes of communication. Sea lane of communication is nothing but a technical term for trade routes. So it is not that when you take out a ship and sail, you can take it anywhere. There are dedicated passages through which you can go. This is for better recovery, and routes are followed, rules are followed to be protected from piracy. All of these things are taken into consideration. In this process, in these trade routes, there are certain things known as choke points. Let us see some of them. This is the Black Sea area which connects you to the Mediterranean, and this is the outlet to the Atlantic Sea. So the areas where you see, for example, Gibraltar, these are small areas through which the ships will pass. These are called choke points. Here, this is the Panama Canal between the North and South American continents. This is another choke point. In West Asia, Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, Suez Canal, these are all choke points. So these are areas, if any disruptions are caused, the global sea lanes of communication can come under threat. So these areas on the enlarged map will be, or on the complete map will be, this point. So all of these major areas can disrupt the flow of trade. And at this point of time, according to the report, these choke points are being blocked in 3 specific areas. In Europe, we can see this in the Black Sea region. This region, due to the war between Russia and Ukraine. In West Asia, there are disturbances in this region also, Bab el-Mandeb region, due to Yemen, Houthi rebels in Yemen who do piracy. Another is in the Suez Canal because of the Israel-Palestine war, and Iran also is attacking some commercial ships of USA because of the overall disturbance in this region. Third area which has come up recently is the Panama Canal, which is due to droughts. So even in the Panama Canal, the trade disruption has taken place. So now ships are forced to go from Europe to Cape of Good Hope first and then come to India. As we have studied in the Indian history, modern Indian history, Vasco da Gama came to Cape of Good Hope and then came to India. So this was the ancient route, but then we had the Suez Canal. You could come from this space only. So this is first time in the history of the world that two major trade routes, this is considered to be single pathway only, but the Panama Canal and this whole region is facing disruptions at the same time. So this will cause major disruptions. We will see the implications. So you have understood the concept, what has happened. This is the report. The report says this is the first time and there will be disastrous consequences. So the implications will be based on food security, energy security, and economic crisis. It will lead to inflation, and also because ships are going through more and more risk, it is causing you increased cost of insurance for the ships which are traveling, for the goods which are traveling, because there is a greater chance of them being blasted by Houthi rebels or through war. Something can happen. So these are the points which are making the global trade difficult, and because the ships are taking a lot longer route, this is making them emit more carbon dioxide. So because you take a longer route, you will also use more fossil fuel. More fossil fuel means more climate change. So this is the linkage between disruption of trade routes and climate change. So this has been given by the body UNCTAD, Conference on Trade and Development. Now this was founded in 1964, headquartered in Geneva. This primary responsibility of this is it is an intergovernmental body which will deal with developmental issues and international trade. It has universal membership, and areas of concern are policy on trade, technology, aid, finance and transportation. So all of these areas are the major concerns of this body. So it has now found out a new area where it can work, that global disruption in trade will not only be bad for the economies but also for climates. So this is the whole situation at this point. Now what is the way forward? We need to build sustainable networks by bringing alternate paths, more investment into infrastructure. Secondly, we need to diversify our trade routes. So for this, you must have also studied in the previous month recital about the Chabahar port, in which India is heavily invested. Also, INSTC, International North-South Transport Corridor, is being developed with India, Russia, Iran, Afghanistan, many Central Asian countries are there. So that is also being developed, and the International Economic Corridor is also being developed. So all of these should be given proper impetus. For India, it is more important. It is critically important because our food security is linked with this. Food and fuel. Food and energy, I would say. Food and energy security of India is linked with this, because petroleum is coming from the west, and if any disruption, West Asian Sea route, if there is any disruption in that area, the cost will escalate, and food, even though produced in India, will require trucks for transportation which run on fuel. So food cost will rise rapidly and it will cause a inflation, and hence social disruptions may also be caused. So we have to be very cautious. And in the international front, India's role is being perceived as a net security provider in the Indian Ocean. That region is our background, that is called as India's own sea, Indian Ocean, personal lake. So our Navy is in charge of the safety and security. We are net security providers. Sagar was given by PM Modi. security and growth for all in the region. So we must ensure our growth before we want to ensure the growth of others. So that will send a negative image that we ourselves are not immune. How will we protect others? So overall, these things have to be taken into consideration, and India should come up as a strong nation to overcome these challenges. Europe's AI Convention. The formal name of this convention is Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence and Human Rights, Democracy and the Rule of Law. So basic aim is to make sure artificial intelligence is following all of these principles, which are core values of today's world. It is adopted by the Council of Europe, and the place of adoption or where it was signed is Vilnius, Lithuania. It will come into force from 2026. So this is the basic information regarding the convention. Now, I mentioned the Council of Europe. So the Council of Europe is explained here. It is founded in 1949 and the headquarters is in Strasbourg, France. The aim is to ensure and protect human rights, democracy and the rule of law. This is the basic principle of this Council of Europe. And who are the members? Members are not only the EU is there, but USA, Japan and the Holy See is also there. What is the Holy See? It is the government of the Catholic churches in the world. So, Holy See along with the Vatican City, both are under the Pope. Holy See and Vatican. Both these places are under the jurisdiction of the Pope. It is also in Italy. Area of concern of the Council of Europe is crime prevention, drug abuse, environmental pollution, etc. So this is how the whole system has evolved. This is the basic information. Now we need to analyze it in depth to understand how it will impact India. Now, as I have already mentioned, the aim of this convention is to make sure artificial intelligence complies to human rights, democracy and rule of law. The only reason why this is framed is this. Artificial intelligence is an upcoming technology. It is emerging very fast. We do not know the unintended consequences of this technology. There are chances of misuse as well. So the Council of Europe has decided that they will take the first move. Now the definition of AI, basically what is the definition of AI given here? It is saying artificial intelligence as a machine based system which can give output, which gives output based on input provided. So if you provide it with some input, it will give you an output, it will generate an output. So if this capability is there and it can influence the external environment, then it is known as artificial intelligence. I have explained artificial intelligence in depth in the defense and security video for this month only. Also, this definition is OECD compliant. It is compliant with the OECD. If an MCQ comes, you will say this. Now we need to understand the scope. Applicability, in terms of applicability, it is applicable to both private and government institutions. So this is the first thing which is very unique about this. Not only has it taken on board the government organizations, but also the private organizations also have to say that we will use this ethically. Secondly, there are certain exemptions. This is the people who are applicable to, but there are certain exemptions also. For example, national security, research and development, defense, etc. So these areas are exempted. Okay. Now what are the core values? How does this convention help you to protect the core values? Article 4 asks the people who sign this to protect the human rights. Article 5 says that we will protect democracy and rule of law. Last but not the least, enhanced commitments is also there. Article 22. Enhanced commitment means that you can increase more commitments. If you are looking for more commitments which are given in this framework, you can increase them and give yourself more work to do. So you can protect more rights also if you want. So Article 22 is there. Individual countries can impose more restrictions. This is being jointly developed by Japan, USA, European Union and the Holy See. So this is the overall features or the highlights of this convention. Now we need to understand its impact fully. Now that we have understood what this convention is saying, we need to understand the impact. Now the significance of this deal is that this is the first such deal, first such convention. Why am I saying first convention? Legally binding first convention. It is the first legally binding convention, and the point is that they will get the first mover advantage. That if they are able to develop this system, all the rest of the coming protocols will be governed by them. So the significance another is that they are first movers. So what are the challenges and concerns? First challenge is that AI is evolving very fast. Secondly, there is also a chance that more countries will come up with such. More countries will develop such conventions, because it is not that if we are excluded, India is excluded, it does not mean that we are not free to sign such an agreement with other countries. We can also form a group. BRICS can also come up with such a convention. So this one more issue is there. Another thing which we have to see is the impact for India, which is the most important takeaway for us. In the analysis in depth and recitals in depth, the impact on India will be one of the major proportions. Now, what will be the impact for India? That India will be, if tomorrow it takes up this, India will be given a deal in which it was not a founding member. Another thing which can happen is that the products which are made by them, products or services made by Japan, USA, EU, see, these are leading countries in terms of AI. And if they make a group where other countries are not given this, for example, it was earlier in nuclear energy, nuclear suppliers group was there. So India was made out of that group. So if such thing happen again, that India remains excluded, it will be very difficult for us to develop this technology, grow into this technology. So the way forward for us remains that we continue to invest in research and development. We should very proactively take up these technologies so that the future is safe for us. The future is as efficient for us as it will be for the first world countries. So with this thought, this topic is concluded. BIMSTEC charter comes into force. BIMSTEC was founded in 1997 with its permanent secretariat is in Dhaka, which is Bangladesh. Aim is that it will become an economic bloc to counter the onslaught of globalization. What does it mean? That it is going to counter the inequality of developed and developing world. Due to the globalization, USA has benefited more. India, Bangladesh, the members of this grouping have benefited less. So this is what the aim is saying, that we will counter the onslaught of globalization. members are Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Nepal and Bhutan. Now there are 14 areas of concern in this grouping, and for each concern there are certain lead countries. India is the lead country for transport and communication, tourism, environment and disaster management, counter-terrorism and transnational crime. So lead country means that it is going to chair those committees when discussions for these subjects come up. Otherwise there are going to be more areas as well, crime prevention, drug abuse, etc. But under these meetings, India will be leading. So this is the situation. Now the charter has come up. The basic meaning of a charter is that the core principles are decided. Goals, core principle and the structure of BIMSTEC is now finalized. It has been contractualized. It was come into force into May 2024. So it has just come into force. What happens if we get this charter? What happens with the charter? First, that your goal, principle and structure is highlighted. What happens in this situation is that a person or this organization can allow new members. What will happen? We will show them the charter and ask them, is this also your goal? Is this also your principle? And are you agreeing with the structure? If they say yes, we can take them. So it will be open for new members. Second thing which will happen is the organization will become a legal entity. Legal entity means that it can also work like a company. Company can also be sued in court. For such situations, this has become as a legal enterprise and it can formulate contracts with other countries. BIMSTEC in contract with India can also happen. Though India is in both sides, but BIMSTEC will be treated as a separate legal entity. This opens up a lot of avenues for further development and we shall see this in detail now. Now, what is the significance of this and overall the significance of BIMSTEC and how it will impact us? See, BIMSTEC is considering about 22% population of the world. Economically, it has $4 trillion worth of economy and it is also a gatekeeper of South Asia, gateway to South Asia and Southeast Asia. You will also see that the members are around very important sea lanes of communications like Strait of Malacca, Hormuz, etc. All of these are near this choke points which we have learnt in the previous topics. So this is the overall significance. Now all of these countries are in need of technological development. India, Thailand, Bangladesh, Nepal. So all of them can cooperate, all of them can pool in the resources and bring in better growth for themselves, which is guided by their values, which can respect their culture, Asian values or South Asian values, the Indian subcontinent values, and not driven by values of the West. So this is going to be another important development. But what are the challenges? See, even though they have 22% of the population, but trade is almost negligible. And when you are talking about cooperation, economic cooperation becomes one of the first parameters where the success is judged. So this is not doing so well on the basis of trade. If we see that China's debt policy is also wreaking havoc in most of these countries, except India, almost all the members are having a lot of debt from China. Also, we have the Rohingya crisis between Myanmar and Bangladesh, which is also coming into India. So overall, that situation is also within the member countries. So there are certain challenges. Now, impact for India will be, a negative impact can also be there now, that China may also become a member. It may also apply for membership, and you in a group you have to go as per the rules. Most of the members are under debt, so they will say, okay, let China come. So such a situation will create politics, and Otherwise, the positive impact can be that India drives this group towards growth and prosperity. India can start its journey to become Vishwaguru. So this is the overall situation, and what should be the way forward for India. See, the location, strategic location of BIMSTEC countries is such that Myanmar, Thailand can also give us an alternate route to the northeast of India, which is critical for our security. Also, we need access to the ASEAN countries for more trade. For example, Singapore, Malaysia, we need more access to that area. So BIMSTEC becomes a good bridge. We can invest in infrastructure in that area. So India should pursue this very positively and make sure that the Chinese influence is warded off. Thematic report on rangelands and pastoralists by UNCCD. UNCCD is the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. It is one of the 3 Rio Conventions, the other 2 being UNCBD, United Nations Convention on Biology and Diversity. Third is the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. UNCCBD is the third one. Permanent Secretariat is at Bonn, Germany. It is legally binding and it will protect and restore land which is degraded to combat desertification and drought. So if any areas has been lost due to drought or desertification, due to overgrazing or overdevelopment, so all of these things will be under this. Now the area of concern is dry lands, and this every year the report they release the report Global Land Outlook. In this there is a thematic report, basically a specific report focusing on rangelands and pastoralism. So now we need to understand what rangelands are. Pastoralists are people who have livestock, who keep livestock. What are rangelands? What are their impacts? And what is it said about India in this report? Now, rangelands are drier areas. It may be shrubby or grassy, savanna, etc., on which pastoralists can take their livestock to graze, or wild animals can also be there. So surprisingly, they cover 54% of the land of the earth. Now, what has the report suggested? That 50% of them have been destroyed, and it is happening in silence. People are ignorant about it. They are being converted into deserts very quickly, and people are totally unaware about this, ignorant about this, and they don't care. So this is the overall situation. Now you see, pastoralists are not one of the most well-to-do families, but they will be in the lower rung of the economy. They will be very vulnerable in terms of society and economy. Now their land is also being threatened due to the climate changes. Also, it houses a lot of wildlife, biodiversity, food chains, habitats, etc. So a lot of population of the different species is dependent on their survival. Grazelands are also basically, they are a food source for the animals. So if they are lost, the animals will not be able to survive. Also, it stores about 1/3 of the carbon storage. 1/3 of the world's carbon storage is in the rangelands. Now, what does the report suggest for India? In India, rangelands or grazing activities contribute 4% to GDP, overall GDP, and 26% of agricultural GDP. So this is the overall contribution of livestock rearing in the India. Also, 20% of livestock of the world is in India. There are many communities which are famous for livestock grazing. For example, Van Gujjars, Maldharis, Rabadis. So all of these are dependent entirely on these lands. So what about their rights? Should we not even consider them? These people in terms of population are close to 20 million, and their rights on these grazing lands, for example, you have a pet or you have a cow, you take it to graze somewhere, it will eat somewhere. Now these rights are not recognized by the government. There will be a situation that the people may be thrown out from that land for some construction, or it may become a desert. So in that situation, where will these communities go? What will be their source of livelihood? All of these things are not being considered. These are being totally ignored. Even the climate change, even the forestation, we cover only the national parks. Most of these areas are left out of the national park. So hardly any area of them is coming into the protected areas. So grasslands are not into consideration, the rangeland are not into consideration, and they are soon being destroyed. Also, the scheme has highlighted some success areas. The Van Gujjar community, which I have told you, has also received land in the Rajaji National Park. Their right have been recognized in the High Court judgment. Also, the Forest Rights Act of 2006 gives them the forest rights, access to the grazing lands. So the Forest Rights Act has been appreciated. Also certain other schemes, that Rashtriya Gokul Mission, National Livestock Mission, all of these have been appreciated. So the success areas have also been discussed. What is more important is the way ahead. See, that we cannot allow our rangelands to die in silence. We need to be proactive to protect them and rejuvenate them. For this, major efforts in watershed development are required. Afforestation, government support, people's participation, all of these with the traditional communities which enjoy these rights, keeping in mind the human dignity. All of these vulnerable groups are at the mercy of climate change, and they are very vulnerable. So we need to protect them. So proper steps should be taken with the help of coordination among government agencies, NGOs, as well as the people. In a tragic incident, Colonel Vaibhav Kale was killed in the Gaza Strip. At that time, he was serving in the United Nations Department of Safety and Security. This incident took place in the Gaza Strip, and Rafah is in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, which is dispute between Palestine and Israel is there. In Egypt, this area is called the Sinai Peninsula. So if a question comes, where is Rafah located? It is in the Israel or the Gaza Strip. So what is the work of this UNDSS? Basically, it was established in 2005 by United Nations General Assembly resolution. The main work performed by them is to give security expertise to implement the mandate of UN. Mandate of UN means if there is any decision being taken by UN, it will make sure it is fulfilled, and it will help them the oversight, military oversight, whatever requirements are there to ensure safety, that order is carried out will there. This is so important that this body reports directly to the Secretary General of the United Nations. Vision is security for the UN for a better world, and the mission is to enable United Nations system operations through security leadership and solutions. So it will provide solution to the United Nations overall mandates. It will protect all the assets, and this is only important for the prelims, as this is not a very known body. but you can look at the geographical location and the body because it becomes important.